Welcome, geometers, to the video on solving right triangles. So the first thing that we should talk about is, what does it mean to solve a right triangle? All that means is to find all angles and sides. So you're going to be given a triangle, you're going to be given some information about that triangle, and then you're going to find all the angles and all the sides. So 3 angles, 3 sides. This is nothing new. It's going to use the stuff that we've learned this chapter and kind of bring it all together. We're going to do some special right triangles, we're going to do some Pythagorean theorem, we're going to do some trig, so it's kind of a mix of everything. So I told you you're going to either have to solve for sides or angles. In terms of solving for sides, there's 3 basic methods. The first one is special right triangles. What I mean by that is 45, 45, 90 and 30, 60, 90 triangles. So if you're given a 45, 45, 90 or 30, 60, 90 triangle, you're going to use the ratios that we use. The L, L, L root 2, and the L, L root 3, 2L. If that's not the case, you might have to use the Pythagorean theorem. So if you're given 2 sides and you're asked to solve for the third, you would use the Pythagorean theorem. And then the last one, which is the newest one, is you're going to use trig. So most of what we do today is going to use trig. So you're going to set up a ratio using either sine, cosine, or tangent, and you're going to solve for the sides that you're missing. In terms of solving for missing angles, the first way is that the sum of a triangle is equal to 180. So if I have 2 angles, I can subtract them from 180 and that would find me the third angle. And then the second way is inverse trig. So that's when you set up a ratio and take the inverse of both sides to find an angle. I know this might be a little confusing, so I thought let's just jump in and do some examples. So the first 2 examples have to do with when you're given 1 angle measure and 1 side. So let's look at that example to the left. We have triangle PQR, we have this right angle, we have this 37-degree angle, and we have a side. So we're missing 2 sides and an angle. So I need to find angle P, I need to find side PQ, and I need to find side QR. So 3 things to solve for. I'm going to mark my sides X and Y. In this case, I think it's easiest to find the angle first. Because we have 2 angles, and we know that the triangle is 180, angle P is going to be 180, subtract my 90 degrees at angle Q, subtract 37. Another way to write this is 90 add 37 add angle P equals 180. All 3 angles add to be 180. This tells me that angle P is 53 degrees. Okay, so 1 down, 2 to go. Now I have to solve for the 2 sides that I'm missing. Up above I wrote we could use special right triangles, which wouldn't work here. We don't have a 45, 45, 90. We don't have a 30, 60, 90. We could use the Pythagorean theorem. That doesn't work here because we only know 1 side. So we're going to have to use trig. That's our only option to solve for sides X and Y. Sorry. So I'm going to write SOHCAHTOA at the top, just so that I remember my ratios. If I solve for X first, I'm going to ignore Y. So looking at my 37, Y is the opposite side, 22 is the hypotenuse, and X is the adjacent. Now if I'm solving for X, I'm going to ignore Y, which means I have the adjacent and the hypotenuse. Adjacent and hypotenuse is going to be cosine. So the cosine of 37 degrees is equal to adjacent, which is X, over hypotenuse, which is 22. If I put this over 1 and I do my cross products, I get X equals 22 multiplied by the cosine of 37. In this case, I get X to be 17.57. Okay, X on my triangle is QR. So QR is going to be 17.57. Okay, PQ then, I'm looking for y, so I'm going to ignore x. If I ignore x, I have the opposite, and I have the hypotenuse, which is going to be sine. So this time I have the sine of 37 equals opposite, which is y, over hypotenuse, which is 22. I'm going to do my cross products. I have y equals 22 multiplied by the sine of 37. In this case, I get y to be 13.24. Y on my figure is PQ, so PQ is 13.24. And our first problem is done. I know that seems like a lot of steps, but it's nothing new. We set up some ratios and we solved them. Before we move on, I just want to make sure that our answers make sense. So I'm going to label on the figure everything that we just figured out. Okay, so angle P is 53 degrees. PQ is 13.24, and then QR is 17.57. Sorry that my handwriting is not so great. I'm using a new pen, which is why it's a little difficult for me to write. Okay, so in this case, both sides are smaller than the hypotenuse, which is a good sign. The smallest side, 13.24, is located across from the smallest angle. Middle side is across the middle angle. So that makes sense. Looks good. These three are my answers then. I have solved the triangle. Okay, looking at our second example. Again, it would ask us to solve the triangle. So that means find everything that's not labeled. In this case, I need to know what angle T is. I need to know what side TR is. And I need to know what side TA is. It's easiest to find angle T first, in my opinion. Don't have to, but that's how I'm going to start. Looking at angles, I know they sum to 180. So I have one 90-degree angle, I have one 24-degree angle, then I have angle T, and they sum to be 180. If I take 180 and I subtract 90 and I subtract 24, I get angle T to be 66 degrees. Okay, now looking at what I have, I'm going to label the two sides I don't know, x and y, so I can solve for them. Looking at the 24, x is going to be my opposite side, y is going to be my hypotenuse, which then means that 33 is the adjacent. Now, I can't use a special right triangle because this is not 45, 45, 90, and it's not 30, 60, 90. I can't use Pythagorean theorem because I only know one side. So I'm going to have to use trig to find those two sides. Starting with x, I'm going to ignore y. So looking at x and 33, I have opposite and adjacent, which is tangent. So I have tangent of 24 is equal to opposite, which is x, over adjacent, which is 33. Put this over 1. When I do my cross products, I get x equals 33 multiplied by the tangent of 24. Please remember that you cannot multiply 33 and 24. This is one number, so you can't mess with it. When I take 33 and I multiply it by tangent of 24, I get x to be 14.69. X is TR, so TR is 14.69. And then I have to find y, which means I'm going to ignore x. If I ignore x, I have 33 and y, which is adjacent and hypotenuse, so I'm going to use cosine. In this case, cosine of 24 equals adjacent, which is 33, over the hypotenuse, which is y. Put this over 1, and I'm going to do my cross products. This one's a little different. This time I get 33 equals y multiplied by the cosine of 24. Now, I want to know what y is. I'm going to have to divide by the cosine of 24. So here I get y is 33 over cosine of 24. So I get y to be 36.12. In this case, TA is 36.12. Now I'd just like to check to see, do my answers make sense? So I'm going to mark my answers on the figure. Angle T is 66 degrees. Side TR is 14.69. and side TA is 36.12. Okay, the first thing that makes sense is that my hypotenuse is the longest side, which here that is the case. TA is the longest side. Then the smallest angle should be across from the smallest side. 14.69 is the smallest side. Medium angle should be across from the medium side. 33 is the middle side. So my answers do make sense. Therefore, these are the three values that solve the triangle. So again, that's just review. All we're doing is taking those skills that we've learned and putting them together. So this is the case where we're given one angle measure and one side. Flip the page, please. Here's the case where we are given two sides. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to solve for the third side and the two angles. Okay, now when solving for sides, I'm going to solve for the side first. We could use special right triangles, which we don't have here, Pythagorean theorem, or trig. Here, since we know two sides, we're going to use the Pythagorean theorem. So I have 11 squared add 18 squared equals Pn squared. The left side ends up being 445 equals Pn squared. If I take the square root, I get Pn equals root 445. I forgot to label what we're going to need to figure out. So in this case, we need to solve for Pn, angle P, and angle N. Pn we just found using the Pythagorean theorem, and we got root 445. Now we need to solve for the two angles. To solve for angles, I said that we could use the fact that the sum is 180, or we could use inverse trig. Here, since I only know one angle, I only know the 90 degrees, I can't use the 180 yet. So I'm going to have to use inverse trig to find an angle. I'm going to start by finding angle P. Looking at angle P, I have 18, which is opposite, and I have 11, which is adjacent. So this is going to be tangent. So I have the tangent of angle P equals opposite, which is 18, over adjacent, which is 11. Now, remember that in order to split up the tangent and the P, I have to take the inverse. So I'm going to take the inverse tangent on both sides. Remember on the left side that inverse and tangent are going to cancel. So we get angle P is the inverse tangent of 18 over 11. Now in your calculator, this means you have to do second tangent. When you do that, you should get angle P to be 58.57 degrees. Okay, and then the last one we have is angle N. Well, I know that all three angles, Q add P add N, are going to be 180. So angle Q is 90. Angle P is 58.57. Angle N I'm solving for, that equals 180. When I take 180 and subtract 90 and subtract 58.57, I get angle N to be 31.43 degrees. Okay, before we move on, let's label on the figure and make sure that that makes sense. So I have root 445, then I have 58.57, and 31.43. Okay, now do these make sense? Well, the square root of 445 is about 21. So my hypotenuse is the longest side in this case, so that's good. My smallest angle goes with my smallest side. 31 is the smallest angle, 11 is the smallest side. Middle angle goes with middle side. So my answers do make sense. So we have solved the triangle. We found all three sides, all three angles. Okay, so far I've done a lot of the work. So right now I would like you to take the video, pause, and solve this problem right here. So in order to do that, you're going to have to find side UT, you're going to have to find angle U, and you're going to have to find angle S. It's very similar to the problem that we just did, but with different numbers. So look back, at the problem we just did and how we found the side of the two angles, and you do it yourself. Good luck. Okay, let's see how we did. So I would have started by finding UT. Because I know two sides, I can use Pythagorean theorem to find the third side. I'm going to have UT squared add 7 squared equals 23 squared. I get UT squared equals 480. I take the square root, and then I'm going to have to start simplifying. So 480 is going to be 48 times 10. 10 is 5 times 2. 48 is 6 times 8. So I have 4 times 2. 2 and 2. 2 and 3. Okay, I'm going to have to start looking for pairs. I have this pair of 2's. I have this pair of 2's. I have a 3, a 5, and another 2 left over. So I get UT to be 2 times 2 root the 3, the 5, and the extra 2. In this case, UT is 4 root 30. Okay, so you might not have simplified. Maybe you didn't realize that you had to simplify. Hopefully we did. If we didn't, now we know. Okay, now I'm going to find angle U. If you found S first, that's fine. You should still have the same answers I do. Looking at angle U, I have the opposite side and the hypotenuse. Opposite and hypotenuse is sine. So I have the sine of angle U is equal to opposite, which is 7, over hypotenuse, which is 23. Now to get rid of that sine, I should have taken the inverse. So you get U to be the inverse sine of 7 over 23. In this case, you should find angle U to be 17.72 degrees. To find angle S, you should have taken 180, subtracted 90, subtracted the 17.72. You get angle S to be 72.28 degrees. Hopefully that one went well for you. If you didn't, please make sure, or if the problem did not go well, please make sure that you go back and figure out what you did wrong. That might involve rewatching an earlier part of the video, or redoing the problem itself. Now, we have one more problem. In this case, you are given one angle and one side. You're going to have to solve to find angle V, side WX, and side WV. This is like the first two problems that we did. When you come to class tomorrow, I'm going to check to make sure that you did this problem correctly and that you did all of it. I will tell you that WV should end up to be 4.10. I still need to see the setup for it. So 2 setups for the sides and a setup for the angle. Good luck!